Thanks for joining us on CBN News Midday. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Lori Johnson. A bus bombing rocked central Jerusalem this morning. Israeli radio is reporting at least one person is dead and over 24 others are injured. The bomb exploded at a crowded bus stop. Officials there are calling it a terrorist attack. It appears to be the first militant attack in the city in several years. The blast could be heard throughout Jerusalem and blew out the windows of two crowded buses. The city suffered dozens of attacks during the second Palestinian uprising last decade, but nothing like this has happened since 2004. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is in Jerusalem and just returned from the scene of the bombing and joins us now. Chris, what did you see and what more are you learning about the attack?
Lori, it was very reminiscent of many of the attacks that came here several years ago. Like you said, the last one was in February of 2004. This bombing wasn't a suicide attack. It was a bomb or explosive device, as the police called it, that was set off near some buses that, as you say, blew out the windows, injured about 24, and now, as we're just hearing, killed one person. It was a very reminiscent scene. It sounded like a deja vu for many of us who have been covering these attacks throughout the last decade.
Well, do authorities have any clues at this point as to who did this? Is anyone claiming responsibility this early?
As far as I know, nobody's claiming responsibility right now. Police say the investigation is ongoing. They didn't say, at least they weren't saying right now, if they knew who perpetrated this attack. There is speculation on this accompanies a 10-day barrage of rockets and mortars on the southern border into southern Israel. And so it might be a coordinated attack, perhaps to put pressure on Israel. Many suspect it could be Iran behind both bombings.
Well, do you think that the attacks that you just mentioned mean that Egypt now supports Hamas in Gaza? And do you suppose Israel will retaliate?
Well, certainly there's some elements within Egypt support Hamas in Gaza, but I'd say it's probably premature to say that the government itself is behind this or supporting Hamas directly. It's likely, I think, that Iran might be trying to instigate pressure on Israel. It does remain to be seen exactly who's behind this bombing, but it's possible there could be some connection.
Chris, what should we be looking for in the next few days?
Well, I guess right now, what kind of reaction Israel will have, what Bibi Netanyahu is going to be doing, Israel's prime minister. We interviewed the mayor down there at the scene of the bombing. We'll be doing a report on later for Newswatch. He tried to calm people and put a positive spin on this whole thing. But the concern here is that there might be an increased spate of these kind of terror attacks that used to plague the city many years ago.
Chris Mitchell in Jerusalem, thank you. And
thank you,
for
Lori.
continuing coverage of this news event throughout the day of the attack in Jerusalem, go to our website, cbnnews.com.
Turning now to the situation in Libya, the Obama administration is ready to hand over control of military operations there. The president says that could happen within a few days, but there are questions about who will take that control and who will pay for it. It could be NATO, but one security expert tells the Washington Times that NATO is in complete disarray over Libya. Here at home, Obama is facing ongoing criticism from Republicans and Democrats for his handling of the action. Some liberals say he shouldn't have gone to war in the first place, and some conservatives say he took too long and hasn't handled it well.
Today marks the one-year anniversary of President Obama's controversial health care law. Republicans want to repeal the law, and many Americans remain skeptical that the reform will actually benefit them. Charlene Israel explains.
In a grand celebration, the president signed his sweeping health care reform legislation into law.
After a century of striving, after a year of debate, after a historic vote, health care reform is no longer an unmet promise. It is the law of the land.
Parts of it have already been implemented, like allowing adult children to stay on their parents' insurance until they turn 26, prescription drug discounts for seniors, and insurance coverage for those with pre-existing conditions. As Obamacare turns 1 year old, the jury is still out on whether it will control soaring spending costs or improve health outcomes.
Most people have yet not seen a major change in their coverage or the cost of their coverage.
Congressional Republicans say the law costs too much and hurts small businesses.
A year later, it looks even worse than it did then, and that is really saying something.
Reducing costs was one of the key points the Obama administration made in its push for reform. But a new estimate by the Congressional Budget Office shows the cost of this bill has increased by $500 billion in the past year. Karen Minor Hurd of the Virginia Tea Party Alliance told CBN News why.
First off, when they did the initial cost estimates, they used bogus numbers. You cannot add 30 million people to the rolls and then say we're going to cut costs.
Democrats continue to sell the bill as good for American consumers.
We believe very strongly that our healthcare system needed reform to increase the access that Americans have to healthcare.
Meanwhile, the Tea Party has this warning for newly elected congressional Republicans who don't fight the healthcare law.
If they don't stand up, we'll replace them in office. If they do not hold the line, that was what they were elected to do, to cut spending, cut spending, cut spending, and repeal Obamacare. If they don't do that, if they are perceived as being weak or vacillating or doing some kind of a bipartisan thing on a compromise where there should be no compromise, then they will be replaced.
About 24 states are suing the administration because they say the bill is unconstitutional. The case is expected to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
And for more on this, Phil Kerpen joins us now from Washington. He's with Americans for Prosperity. Phil, a new estimate by the Congressional Budget Office shows the cost of this bill has increased by $500 billion in the past year. How can it be this out of control already?
Well, I think that that's just proof that the original estimates were twisted estimates, were really cooked books to try to smooth the way for passage. I still think the costs will be considerably higher than even the new estimates, just based on the historical experience with other big government healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid. They always cost a lot more than the people say they'll cost up front.
Now, other than the cost of the plan, are we seeing any other problems with it?
We are. We're already seeing a lot of things happen that are the opposite of what the bill's proponents said would happen. Premiums have gone up, not down, on average about $2,100 per family in higher premiums under the new law, with the carrier saying it's specifically because of the cost to them of complying with the new regulations. We've seen a lot of people lose their coverage when the president, of course, promised over and over again that if you like your plan, you could keep it. Now the official estimates from the Obama administration are that about 50% of folks will lose the plans they have now, and about 80% of small businesses will no longer be able to offer the plans they have now with the new grandfather regulations that have been put in. And they promised over and over again that we wouldn't have rationing of care. And then Obama put someone in charge of the Medicare program, Donald Berwick, who's an open proponent of rationing, who says he's romantic about the British healthcare system. And we've already seen some troubling things like the FDA withdrawing approval for Avastin as a treatment for breast cancer and the implications that that has in terms of the availability of care and rationing. And so I think we're already seeing many of the things that opponents of the bill warned about, and we're really not seeing the benefits we were promised.
Well, what are the strategies for fighting this in Congress, and can they succeed?
Well, I think that the primary strategy is to deny funding for it moving forward. And of course, the House had some very significant votes on denying funding. Unfortunately, they were attached to a bill, the H.R. 1 continuing resolution, that the Senate refused to take up. And so now the government's been operating on short-term continuing resolutions that continue to fund this law. This is going to be a major showdown going into the next budget cycle, the budget for 2012 and the appropriations bills. And I think Republicans need to hold firm and not fund this law. They've got to stand up against this. And eventually we're going to have to repeal it and start over with real reform. It's important to remember the process that resulted in this disastrous bill. I mean, they passed really a draft bill, an unfinished piece of legislation to get around Scott Brown's election in Massachusetts. And so there's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been a lot of confusion. There's been a lot of power with bureaucrats and regulators to decide who does and who doesn't have to comply with all of these waivers and so on. So the bill's getting worse. We've got to deny it funding in the near term, but what we really need to do is repeal it and start over again with an honest, open process so we can reform healthcare the right way.
It really sounds like a classic example of haste makes waste. Well, we know about the lawsuits that certain states have filed. How effective is that process? And are there any other strategies that states can use to fight the law?
Well, federal judges are split at this point. There have been two federal judges who said the law's okay, two federal judges who said it's unconstitutional. The judge who struck it down in Virginia said that the mandate to buy insurance was unconstitutional, but he would let the rest of the law stand. The judge who struck it down in Florida disagreed, said the whole thing is unconstitutional, rejected the whole law. We really won't know the constitutionality of this until it reaches the Supreme Court and we see what 5 justices there think, and it'll probably come down to Kennedy, as it often does on these controversial cases. And it's hard to say which way he'd come down. I certainly think the law is unconstitutional. We've never had the federal government forcing people to buy a product before, which is what this law does. And so I hope that it would be struck down. Other things states can do. Many states have adopted healthcare freedom acts or healthcare freedom amendments that guarantee a state constitutional right to folks to get healthcare services they want with their own dollars and to not participate in government-run healthcare systems if they do not want to participate. That is an excellent state strategy. States have also passed resolutions condemning the law and encouraging their federal delegations to revisit it. So there are a lot of things the states can do. The most important immediate thing for the states to do, I believe, is to demand a reform of the Medicaid program based on the block grant model that worked so well in welfare reform in the 90s. Let's cut all those strings that come with federal Medicaid dollars. Let states control that money, innovate, run their own programs, because otherwise all of these new requirements and the expansion of Medicaid in the healthcare law is really going to break state budgets.
Okay, Phil Kerpen with Americans for Prosperity. Thanks, as always, for your insight and keeping us informed on what's really going on.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back. Coming up, we're going to tell you about the lawmakers trying to keep their promises to those that elect them.
Have you ever had an idea for an invention or new product? Bill Schaefer, one of the inventors of Wham-O's new Splash Wash, did. He came up with the idea while watching his children play one hot summer afternoon. Bill invented a car wash for kids. Ride through it, run through it. InventHelp submitted the Splash Wash to Wham-O, the makers of childhood favorites like the Frisbee, Hula Hoop, and Slip and Slide. If you have an invention you would like to try to patent and submit to corporations and want free information that explains how InventHelp may be able to assist you, call now. InventHelp is America's largest invention company with sales offices in over 50 cities nationwide. Call InventHelp today for free information. Bill Schaefer made a financial gain on the Splash Wash. However, most inventions are not successful, and Bill's experience is not typical of what inventors can expect.
For your free inventor's information, call 1-800-260-7793. That's 1-800-260-7793.
I've fallen and I can't get up. I need help.
When you are home alone and have a bad fall where you cannot move, you are stuck in a very limited area. If you cannot reach a phone, you may lay helpless on the floor for hours or days, which can result in permanent incapacitation or death.
This waterproof pendant is my magic wand. To some of the paramedics, fire department, police, or my doctor, it contacts Life Alert.
When you have a heart attack like I did, and there's no one there, Life Alert was there for me. I couldn't handle the alternative of going to a nursing home.
Thanks to Life Alert, you can live alone without ever being alone. And that's why I wear one.
New Life Alert Classic for seniors or Life Alert 50+.
Please call 1-800-586-0025 for a free brochure about Life Alert. That's 1-800-586-0025. Call us toll-free now at 1-800-586-0025. That number again, 1-800-586-0025.
Welcome back. A coalition of pro-life groups is pressuring members of Congress this week to end funding for Planned Parenthood. Members of the Expose Planned Parenthood Coalition are mobilizing activists to call and visit the representatives' district offices or attend town hall meetings. The goal is to see the pro-abortion group stripped of $363 million in public funds. Freshman congressmen are usually the least important in Washington.
But with more than 100 new lawmakers on Capitol Hill, the current freshman class holds a great deal of clout, especially those backed by the Tea Party. And those new members are making it clear they are going to remain true to their principles. John Jessup has the story from Washington.
When John Boehner took the gavel,
God bless you, Speaker Boehner.
He assumed responsibility of managing the House, dominated by Republicans, with dozens of new lawmakers swept into office by Tea Party support. But last week,
Yes, we got some members who'd want to do more.
Speaker Boehner narrowly avoided a government shutdown when 54 House Republicans defied party leadership by voting against a continuing resolution to fund the government. One of those Republicans was Kansas GOP freshman Tim Hillskamp.
We had all kinds of amendments, and those are not part of the CR. So on one hand, funding the government for 3 more months essentially means we continue to fund Obamacare, we continue to fund Planned Parenthood, and we continue to fund these regulations that are killing job creators in this country.
Hillskamp views spending and the federal debt as a moral issue. He believes the government no longer reflects society's values and wants to use the congressional power of the purse strings to make sure it does. As an example, he points to the Defense of Marriage Act.
The administration, for instance, refuses to defend our Traditional Marriage Act, and we should be defunding the Justice Department if they're not willing to use the funds to defend our laws.
Hillskamp is not alone.
This is immoral, it's unwise, and it ought to be illegal.
Utah freshman Mike Lee is an avowed Tea Party Republican in the Senate. He helped form the Tea Party caucus, which is also applying pressure on GOP leaders.
The important thing is that we have some group within the Senate that's there standing ready and eager to listen to people who are identifying themselves as part of the Tea Party movement.
Both men say their goals are the same as the GOP's. Where they differ is on tactics. On the budget, they believe it's time to dig in and fight, and say they're willing to compromise so long as concessions include trade-offs like a balanced budget amendment. The White House is warning all parties involved to remember,
no one will get 100% of what they want. I will stipulate that right here.
But veteran lawmakers say these newcomers have a loud voice.
You bet we're listening to this new class that's come in. It's a talented group, but in a very real sense, they represent the voice of the American people on Capitol Hill, and that voice has to be heeded.
Do you think that the GOP leadership is doing a good job at addressing the needs, the interests, and the desires and the priorities of the freshman members who were backed by the Tea Party?
I think our leadership in the House has been unprecedented in how they're reaching out to freshmen. Leadership is a tough job, and but again, every member up here is elected for a particular district, and none of us work for any particular leader, but the leaders are actually trying to work for us.
If party leaders think it's hard keeping their members in line now, it may not get any easier. Conservative lawmakers say the Tea Party movement isn't a passing fad, but a phenomenon that's here to stay.
I believe 2010 was just a prelude to a much bigger set of changes that we'll see in 2012.
John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Up next, why a Muslim student group could be recruiting young minds for jihad.
Starting a garden doesn't have to be backbreaking. Not when you have the Mantis Tiller Cultivator. It does all the hard work for you. The Mantis Tiller weighs about 20 pounds. It's easy for anyone to handle. 3 convenient power options spin the patented tines deep into the soil. They dig down, cutting through the hardest clay and tangled weeds. They're so tough, they're actually guaranteed never to break. And on our 2-cycle model, Mantis offers the fast start engine option. It's our easiest starting 2-cycle tiller ever. Tilling, weeding, and cultivating have never been easier. And now you can get this amazing Mantis Tiller Cultivator at huge savings. Order now, and we include a kickstand accessory, this border edger attachment, and free shipping. Use the Mantis for a full year, and if you're not delighted, return it for a prompt, no questions asked refund.
Call 1-800-707-2105 today for a free DVD and information kit. That's 1-800-707-2105.
Attention those on Medicare with diabetes. You may be eligible for an upgraded meter.
If you're tired of stabbing your fingertips to test your blood glucose, we have news that could change your life. If you're on Medicare with diabetes, then you need to know there's an alternative method for checking your blood glucose every day. You don't need to stab your fingertips anymore. The Embrace meter from Diabetes Care Club is easier to use and nearly painless. And the best news is that Diabetes Care Club would love to send you one of these meters. This method hurts less, and because you can see and hear your results, it may be easier to understand.
Your blood glucose reading is 89.
Call now to find out why. Nearly 250,000 patients have joined Diabetes Care Club. Membership is free, so is the call.
Call 1-800-833-8011.
Talk to Diabetes Care Club. You'll be glad you did.
The Muslim Students Association is one of the largest Islamic organizations in America. It has chapters on hundreds of college campuses.
Its alumni include doctors, lawyers, and engineers. But as Eric Stackelbeck reports, the MSA also includes leaders training young recruits for jihad.
Many Muslim and liberal groups complained about recent congressional hearings on homegrown Islamic radicalism. Yet American-born Muslims are behind a growing number of terror plots, a trend Attorney General Eric Holder has said keeps him up at night. Many of these homegrown jihadists once belonged to the Muslim Students Association, a group with thousands of members on college campuses throughout the U.S. and Canada. The MSA bills itself as a resource and support group, a place where Muslim students can network and help grow the association. Terrorism expert Patrick Poole, however, says his investigation of the MSA shows it's being used for another purpose.
The Muslim Student Association has been a virtual terror factory. Time after time after time again, we see these terrorists, and not just fringe members. I mean, these are MSA leaders, MSA presidents, MSA national presidents who've been implicated, charged, and convicted in terrorism plots.
The roll call includes Anwar al-Awlaki, the al-Qaeda cleric linked to terror plots from Fort Hood to Times Square and beyond. Awlaki, now a target for assassination by the U.S. government, was president of the MSA at Colorado State University in the mid-1990s. Then there is Rami Zamzam. Before his conviction in Pakistan last year for attempting to join the Taliban and kill American troops, Zamzam was president of the MSA's Washington, D.C. Council. Omar Hamami, a leader of the Al-Shabaab terrorist group in Somalia, is another MSA alum. He was once president of the group's chapter at the University of South Alabama. And the list goes on.
Abdurrahman al-Amoudi, who was national president back in the 80s, was al-Qaeda's top fundraiser in America and is currently serving a 23-year prison sentence.
The MSA has long been present on college campuses from coast to coast, places like George Washington University here in the nation's capital. So how does this supposedly mainstream organization get labeled by the NYPD as an incubator for Islamic radicalism? One former FBI special agent told us it could be traced back to the MSA's roots in the Muslim Brotherhood, a global jihadist movement that seeks to establish Islamic Sharia law in America and around the world.
The MSA serves as a recruitment tool to bring Muslims into the Brotherhood, which was its original purpose.
John Guandalo worked on several major terrorism cases for the FBI. He calls the MSA the focal point for the Muslim Brotherhood in America.
Their goal, both from their senior leaders, the presidents of MSAs around the country, national leadership, is to implement Islamic government here in the United States. And they say that.
Founded in 1963 at the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, the MSA quickly spread to other campuses in the Midwest.
There were really three leaders, three Iraqi guys, Jamal Barzinji, Ahmed Tatanji, and Hisham al-Talib, who really set it up, who are known identified Muslim Brotherhood leaders. And from there, MSA became kind of the mothership of all the Muslim Brotherhood front groups.
In 2004, the FBI uncovered an internal Muslim Brotherhood document in which a leader identified the MSA as one of, quote, our organizations and the organizations of our friends. Part of the MSA's on-campus strategy is to aggressively confront pro-Israel speakers. The Muslim Students Union at the University at California, Irvine, an MSA affiliate, was suspended by the school after members repeatedly heckled Israel's ambassador to the U.S. during a speech last year. Another MSA member endorsed genocide against Jews during an exchange with conservative commentator David Horowitz.
I'm a Jew. The head of Hezbollah has said that he hopes that we will gather in Israel so he doesn't have to hunt us down globally. For it or against it?
for it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and showing everybody what's here.
The MSA's national body did not respond to CBN's request for comment on this story, and the organization has not officially addressed the pattern of terrorism arrests involving its former members. Eric Stackelbeck, CBN News, Washington.
Millions of women worldwide love Bare Minerals.
This is smooth, it's nice, and it covers. I like that.
Only Bare Minerals looks like beautiful bare skin, while it covers whatever you want it to. And now you can get our latest kit with our totally new, totally spill-proof Click Lock Go foundation. For over 75% off retail, our new kit comes with Bare Minerals foundation in the shade that's just right for you. Warmth for a healthy glow. Mineral Veil, the ultimate finishing touch, and Bare Minerals Flawless Application Brush. Call now and get 3 full-size gifts worth $57.95 free. Purchased separately, you'd spend over $120. Our original Get Started kit was a great deal at 2 payments of $29.99. But now you can get all this for just 1 payment of $29.99. Save over $90 and get a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Call 1-800-376-4174. Ask how you can receive this handy compact. Call 1-800-376-4174 now.
If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, call now for a new pain-free meter. These new meters are more accurate, they're easier to use, and the best news is you don't have to prick your fingers anymore. Call now and Arriva Medical will send you one of these new meters for free. And if you have Medicare, your testing supplies may also be covered. Arriva makes it simple. They bill Medicare directly. There are no upfront costs. And they deliver your supplies right to your door for free. With these new meters, there's no coding, you don't have to prick your fingers, and some of these meters even talk.
Your blood glucose reading is 122.
And if you call 1-800-284-9762, we will send you a free Betty Crocker Diabetes Cookbook filled with delicious recipes.
Call Arriva today. You'd be glad you did.
A 12-year-old boy in New Jersey is being called a hero after saving his mother's life.
Yeah, he says he simply used the skills he learned in health class. Ramin Esheji was at home with his family when his mother started choking on almonds. His grandmother and younger sister started to panic, but Ramin stayed calm.
I went to my mom and I saw she was like gesturing me to help her. I just did what I had to do. I would do it 1,000,000 times again if I could.
I could hear them in the background, but not clearly, and I just knew that I'm just losing it.
And get this, Ramin learned the Heimlich maneuver just that morning in health class. Wow. Only 9 hours after practicing the technique, he was able to do it perfectly. Sounds like God was involved in all that. His health teacher says that some of her colleagues questioned whether 6th graders were too young to learn the Heimlich.
It does seem like there was divine intervention in some way.
Amen to that. Ramin says he'd like to be a brain surgeon when he grows up because he likes to help people. He's well on his way.
He definitely is. That's all the time we have for this edition of CBN News Midday. You can find information on all the stories you've seen right here at cbnnews.com.
You can also stay up to date with CBN News through Facebook and Twitter. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.
Starting a garden doesn't have to be backbreaking. Not when you have the Mantis Tiller Cultivator. It does all the hard work for you. The Mantis Tiller weighs about 20 pounds. It's easy for anyone to handle. 3 convenient power options spin the patented tines deep into the soil. They dig down, cutting through the hardest clay and tangled weeds. They're so tough, they're actually guaranteed never to break. And on our 2-cycle model, Mantis offers the best start engine option. It's our easiest starting 2-cycle tiller ever. Tilling, weeding, and cultivating have never been easier. And now you can get this amazing Mantis Tiller Cultivator at huge savings. Order now, and we include a kickstand accessory, this border edger attachment, and free shipping. Use the Mantis for a full year, and if you're not delighted, return it for a prompt, no questions asked refund.
Call 1-800-707-2105 today for a free DVD and information kit. That's 1-800-707-2105.
Introducing the all-new Gizmo's Bible Adventures from Superbook.tv. This delightful full-color 30-day devotional is filled with fun puzzles and activities you can do with your children, and it's absolutely free. Kids will love finding out how to grow as a Christian from Chris, Joy, and Gizmo, their Superbook friends. Parents, please visit Superbook.tv and click on the Gizmo's Bible Adventures link to download this booklet today. It can help build a wonderful life for your kids.